Uh, is there anything that you've always wanted to do but haven't?
Yeah, I think about the only thing we really would like to do is still we'd like to go to Russia on a boat trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just the travel. I think that are things we really want to do and have.
So you still have the travel bug that never goes away.
The bug is still there, but the body isn't.
Yeah, I mean, we just, at this point, we can't, I can't deal with the suitcases anymore.
Right.
And I can't deal with the walking, so there,
Mhm.
there you go.
All right. Who are the people who most influenced you? Are there particular people, special people in your lives that you feel like?
Well, my
Really?
parents have obviously, and my Aunt Ruth was very influential in my life.
Mm-hmm.
She always was very close to me, and then when we moved down here, I became even closer. And I used to go over and see her every day. I remember was it Gigi, one of the dogs? It might have been.
No, that was pre-Gigi, I think.
We go to see Aunt Ruth?
Yeah. I think it might have been Gigi's the puppy.
That was, well, it could have been, I don't remember ever taking Tootsie and
No, I think it was Gigi, and the reason why I remember that, because Gigi and Aunt Helen's dog, Callie, who was no longer with us, were the same age, or, just a couple of months apart.
Mm-hmm.
And Aunt Ruth always used to say to me, Gigi is so smart, and that Callie is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. She doesn't even know her own name. I still remember that.
What was it about Aunt Ruthie that was so special or that influenced you so much?
Do you remember her at
Oh,
all?
very much. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how I felt about her, but
Well, she had, she was sweet. She had a wonderful sense of humor. I mean, she just always was full of laughs, and she's very loving.
Mhm. Dad, is there anybody?
Yeah,
I know you were close to Uncle
I
Dave.
guess the only person I would say who truly has influenced you has been your mother. We wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for Mom.
Yeah.
She's always had the ideas. Although one thing she wanted to do was when we moved, before we decided to move here, was to go to France.
For a
Mhm.
year.
That was the only.
With all of your kids,
Yeah,
obviously.
with all the kids. That one I could not do. But other than that, she's always, not only has she influenced me, but it's always been for the better.
Thank you.
Aw.
Aw.
It's true.
So nice. I would like to hear a favorite memory, if you have one, from each of you, of your mother and your father.
My mother and her meringue cake. Do you remember that at all?
Well, is it the one that you made with the strawberries?
Yes.
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 Oh.
And do you know that that was such an influence? I'll never forget that when we were sitting in, I guess it was a limousine, all of us going to her funeral. That's what we talked about, was the meringue cake. Can you think of a nicer epitaph?
Yeah, that's nice.
To leave than meringue cake.
Yeah. What about your father?
My father, unfortunately, I was only, I think, 30 when he died, or under 30, perhaps. And, but he was a very strong, dominant character.
Mhm.
So I have very many memories of him. He was always very loving towards me. And,
Yeah, he was kind of larger than life, right?
yes, he was larger
that's
than
what
life.
I've heard.
That's the best way to describe him.
Mhm. Dad?
Well, I was trying to think. I think of my dad. The thing that I guess must make me admire him. When we were just married, I remember getting a phone call from my mother at night. There apparently, or I guess maybe it was the next morning, there had been a fire at Giant. There was a huge, you never were there, but there was a huge safe in the office, a huge safe. And somebody had tried to get in, and there was just no way. They had broken into the building, and then they set fire to the building.
Wow.
And, of course, it was a going business at that time. Nothing on a much smaller scale, but it grew and grew. Anyway, there was a walk-in refrigerator right by the big overhead door. And the fire department wouldn't go in and check things out so that they could reopen the portions that weren't damaged, because there was an air conditioning compressor that was leaking gas. And I remember that, they wouldn't go in, and we were all standing out in front. And my dad ran in with a rope and dragged that damn thing out. It must have weighed several hundred pounds.
How in the world?
I don't know how he did it, but he did
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah.
Yeah, and just,
Amazing.
it was just amazing. I mean, he set a hell of an example for me. And with my mother, when I was studying to be bar mitzvah, in the upstairs of Giant, they had huge storage of boxes. Boxes were broken down in big bundles. That's where they came from, the manufacturer. Maybe 100 of them. I don't know, more than 100. Anyway, I made my own little fort, which is a whole other thing in my life. I used to love to make forts with soldiers, and I used to get in there, and I could practice and speak loudly, because no one could. It was like being in an insulated room. And anyway, I remember then seeing my mother working. I remember that one of the products they had was cheese-flavored popcorn, and she would be in the back of the place, popping the corn on a machine, and then putting it in this big drum that revolved, and then throwing the cheese in. I remember she was wearing a rag on her head with cheese all over it. And I guess I got from both my mother and father, got a hell of a work ethic.
Yeah. Well, you do have a hell of a work ethic.
She was an amazing lady, because she certainly loved, in later years, fortunately, when she didn't have to work, I mean, she loved the good life.
Mm-hmm.
We used to call her Sparkle Plenty. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
that.
yeah, I do.
And, but when you think back, as a younger woman, the way she worked, that was pretty darn
Yeah, they were
fantastic.
totally broke. I mean, if she hadn't been a part of it, the company never could have made it. I don't think.
And so the success of the company was just over time and hard work. It just grew.
Yeah, and my dad was a good businessman, and it just kept really growing. And then Uncle Dave got in, after the war, and continued. Then my dad had a lot more time just for selling, and we had good product. In those days we were really it for beef jerky,
And then you came along.
and then I
became
came.
a part of it.
And it continued to grow.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share? I think I'm out of questions. I mean, I'm not really out of questions, but I know we have to wrap it up because I've got to get to the airport.
That is correct.
President Obama is waiting for you.
Yes, my friend Barry. I might hitch a ride back, actually. Maybe on the way back to
I think that would
Washington. Air Force One could give me a little
I think
ride
it'll
to
probably
San
stay here as
Francisco.
long as he's here, because I think they got an awful lot of communication gear and things where I think the plane always stays where he is.
Oh. Huh. So they couldn't just take me to San Francisco and
Yeah.
come right back?
Afraid not. I can remember from previous presidents seeing, the planes,
Uh-huh.
which were a lot
fun.
smaller
We've
than
had
this one.
loads of presidents who come in here. Of course, and Gerald Ford.
Right.
I forget if he ever came here when he was
Oh,
president.
I'm sure he did. Nixon, Ford.
Well, several of them stayed with Annenberg.
Have you ever seen a president here? I mean, while you've lived here?
Yeah,
I caught a
at
glimpse of
Johnson.
one of them?
We were in a hall at the hotel way out.
No, it was in Washington, D.C.
No, it was here. It was, there was something at the hotel that's on Vista Chena, but, the big hotel.
The
Vista
spa?
Chena, pardon?
The Spa Hotel?
No, Vista Chena.
Oh,
Not the Vista Chena. Yeah, what's the far out?
The Riviera?
Yeah, Riviera Hotel. We were in a hall, and he walked by us. I remember you and I were standing there. It was some sort of an event. The days when Well, I guess the Secret Service must have been uptight then too, because,
There had been a few.
Kennedy had been killed. But anyway, I remember that, but it was not in Washington, it was here. Of course, your mother's usually right and I'm usually wrong, but my memory was at that hotel.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank
This was
you.
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now.